Very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice on a Monday night. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you're all had a lovely weekend and you enjoyed the entertainment that was held on at the London Stadium. We won, and we won quite easily. But it was a typical game where it almost depicted our season, didn't it? But in a kind of the other way round. Our season, started off really well until around about Christmas time, and then it petered out. It went flat. The game against Luton started off really flat and ended up going really well. A game of two halves, I guess you'd call it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and about David Moyes' last game at home. And then we're going to go into what Julen Lopetegui is going to do or going to have to do when it comes to rebuilding the squad for next season, because he's got quite a job on his hands. And if you believe half the stories that have been bandied around, especially today, about Mohamed Kudus and the fact that Liverpool were just about to sign him, then I guess you're going to be panicking slightly. But fear not. I'll get onto that a little bit later on. But before I do, let's go into the chat and see who's in there. As usual, all the way to the top. Good evening, Daniela. How many more times have got to be said? Don't in any of these early transfer rumours. It's journalists fishing for a story and ITKs making things up. That's it, everyone. Good night. Thank you all for watching. That's the end of the show. But you are right, Daniela. Of course, that's exactly it, isn't it? The transfer window is only just around the corner and the scaremongering has started already. Not only is the scaremongering about, who we're going to sell, but who's going to demand to leave as well, if you believe everything that you read. Good evening, Sean. I hope you're well, mate. I can't believe you're on time. I wasn't. I think I might have been a couple of minutes late, so my apologies. Shaky. Hello, mate. 2118. I think you were spot on, mate. Good evening to you, Graham. How are you? Let's look forward to a more positive future. Well, I'll bet you £1 to a penny. By the time we sign our first player in the transfer window, I reckon we're all going to think it's going to be doom and gloom if we believe everything we hear and everything we read. Tevez Pyatt, good evening to you. Moyes left the oldest and most unfit players. We need at least 11 new players to rebuild. Hopefully, the better way and have a better way of playing. We certainly won't be getting 11 players in. I think I'm estimating it's going to be about 6. And I will talk about the players because we heard earlier today that our prime targets are going to be not one, but 2 centre-backs and a striker. Of course, there'll be other players as well, other positions that we're going to have to fill. But the priorities are 2 centre-backs and a striker. And that begs the question. I mean, well, it doesn't beg the question really, does it? It kind of answers the questions we've all been asking. With regards to the centre-backs, we know Kurt Zouma is, just a game away from being out for another 3 or 4 months. The way he's running is like Bambi on ice. And Mohamed we know Ogbonna is not likely to get a new deal. And Mavropanos has got an error in him. And Naifa Gerd still wants to leave West Ham, regardless of the fact that there's a new manager coming in. And of course, despite the fact that Antonio's been great up front since he came back from injury, we know we need a new striker there as well. Tevez again. Glad that Moyes will not ever be in the dugout again. Best news since he came in. And for me, how are you, mate? I'm glad you got some links there for some nice shirts. So good luck on that. Neil, evenings and evening to you. Let's hope for a better future. Keith, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Toha, hello, mate. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Mark. I hope you're well. Philip, good evening, mate. In my opinion, it's exciting times ahead and can't wait for the rebuild. I'm not going to talk about Lopetegui's style because I talked about that in last week's show. I did a couple of shows last week actually, but I will I'll probably give a refresher as time goes by between now and the summer transfer window. But if you do want to listen to the style of play, his approach, etc., the lineup that he puts out, the formation, etc., then look at the shows that I did from last week. Oh, and by the way, if you're new to the channel, please do hit. There's a button down there called like. There's another button down there, or there's somewhere around there called subscribe. And it costs nothing to become a subscriber of the channel. If you like what you hear, if you like what you see, then become a subscriber. And then you hit that little bell notification, lets you know when I'm next on. Hammerit, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Steve. How are you? I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, Vonnie. How are you, mate? Good evening, Howard. I hope you're well. And good evening to you, Leslie, too. How are you? I hope you're well. Usual's here as well. Usual under 21s at the moment playing extra time. That's a thank you. What's the score? Is it what is it? 1-1, 0-0? Unfortunately, I was getting the show ready, so I wasn't being able to follow it. Black Country, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Steve, believe so. Daniela comes into effect next summer. That's the Kudus thing, and I did a show about that last week as well. It surprises me really how people are kind of losing it over Mohammed Kudus. All you got to do is, watch this show, and I'll give you all the updates, because Mohammed Kudus's release clause doesn't come into effect until next summer. Yes, of course, Liverpool can make a bid for him, but they'll have to make a sizable bid for us to even consider it. Martin, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Leslie, again, interested to see who they want to keep and who Tim manages to get in. I'll come to that, all that later on. I've got some nice little graphics for you to salivate over. William, good evening, mate. Thank you for joining. I hope you're well. Pete Gads, how are you, mate? I'm glad this season is coming to a close. It's been a roller coaster ride of emotions. It has that indeed. Who else have we got? Good evening, Robert. How are you, mate? West Ham go 2-1 up against Sunderland. Fantastic. That's great. The under-21s are doing extremely well. Well, they have been for a couple of years, and so have the under-18s. James, hello, mate. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, James Lee. Afternoon from the States. Welcome, mate. Thank you for joining. Really much appreciated. I hope you enjoy the show. Good evening, Wasim. How are you? I don't think you've been on for a while, but I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Good evening, Lee. We're all safe and well, mate. West Ham, a massive over land and sea. Hit that like button, of course. Where's the sun gone? I was cock a hoop at the weekend because we were basking in 22, 23 degrees sunshine. It's time to emigrate. Sarif, hello, mate. How are you? Galispero to you, mate. I hope you're well. Roly, how are you, mate? Onwards and upwards. Time for some positivity until proven otherwise. Let's see how long Lopetegui's got before everyone start up. I hope we don't start having Lopetegui in, Lopetegui out, and all that sort of stuff again. I could do without that for one season, can't you? Gary, hello, mate. Need pace. We ain't got any in the team. I totally agree with you. Ryan, hello, mate. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Mark. Sadly, it's Galinikta, buddy. I watch tomorrow from sunny Saudi Arabia. You do that, mate. Oh, sunny Saudi Arabia. I'd like to say it's sunny London, but unfortunately, it's not. Gary, hello, mate. How are you? Good to see you at the weekends. Greetings from Reading. What are you doing in Reading? Are you working up there? We've had a Cosmo blowout and are watching you in the pub. All the best, Gary J. Compashki. Oh, what's happened? Are you stuck up there? You doing some work up there? I hope you're doing well. Who else have we got here? Roberts, half-time, extra time. West Ham are leading 2-1. Fantastic. Good evening to you, John. Daniela, can't say I blame Downs for wanting to stay at Southampton. Feel bad about that. I would have liked him to come back. I'm going to, but good luck to the man. He wants to play. He wants to play regular football. He doesn't want to sit on the bench and get paid for just doing nothing. All fair play to him. Vinay, how are you, mate? If Moyes was willing to use a squad, Moyes' ball could have worked. Instead, he ran 11 players into the ground. Can't deny that. We know for him to come out and have said, I'd rather have a smaller squad. I don't know. You just sort of open yourself up, don't you? John, how are you, mate? I've done a Stelios. I'm fashionably late. Don't worry. I'm always later than you. Just want to say Paul Merson is a complete dick. Well, he is. I responded to Sky Sports in the thing that he tweeted out, and he was talking about how Lopetegui's been been a coach for too long, and he doesn't know anything new, and all whatever else he said. Maybe Paul Merson has been punditing or in punditry for far too long, and he no longer knows what he's talking about. But one would argue, did he ever really know? Good evening to you, Ray. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Christine. How are you? Hello, Aaron. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Who else have we got down here? Funky T. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Juha, how are you? I hope you're well. Paul, I hope you're well, mate. I was meaning to message you. Believe it or not, I've actually been busy tonight. or today, sorry. But I will message you tomorrow. I hope everything's okay. Sean Downs said he'd love to stay at Southampton, but it'll be up to West Ham when he comes back. I didn't read as he wanted out of it. No, he said he'd love to stay there because he's playing regular football. I don't blame the young lad. I think it's refreshing, isn't it? When we've had players in the past from other teams who have been sitting on the bench and earning a king's ransom and not worrying whether they play or not, to actually hear a young lad turn around and say, I'd rather play than sit on the bench. I think it's great. It's a shame that we can't find some, he might have a place in the squad next season, but let's carry on for now. Brownie, how are you, mate? Hope you're well and horny. Good evening to you, Clive. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Who else have we got here? Let's say a quick hello to Daniel. Hello, mate. Doing a stellar podcast as always. Thank you very much. Have you heard that we're looking for 2 centre backs? I have indeed. And I've already mentioned that, mate. Bill, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. We won't release a new coach name, but understand we won't release the new coach name, but would be nice to hear details of this project and what Steiden's involvement and role will be. Well, I think it's becoming clearer as time goes by. I read a really, really good article today from KUMB about not only about David Moyes' time being up, but also David Sullivan. And I'm going to suggest you go back in the back catalogue. I did a show about Sully and, apparently they're trying to get a Saudi Arabian money into the club. And Sullivan is looking at potentially downsizing in terms of the value of the shares he's got, going down to something like 25%, Kretinsky going down to 25%, and then offering a 25% controlling stake in the club to a new investor. Now, what does that mean about Steiden? Well, I wonder if bringing Steiden in was the first part of that, because bringing Steiden in means that Sullivan can take a step back away from transfers, also meaning that a head coach is also a step removed from transfers. Sullivan, believe it or not, doesn't always want to do it. Apparently, he wants to retire. He wants to potentially retire abroad with his Dolly Bird, and he wants to take a step back. And by doing that, is the first step, apparently, was bringing in a technical director in Steiden. Now, the next bit that was suggested in the KUMB article, which I found quite intriguing, is not only do you bring in another controlling investor in, but then you have to recruit a CEO. But I asked earlier to Sean Whetstone, of course, would we bring a CEO into the club to sort of sign off transfers? And Sean said, not really. Steiden's got that control now that David Moyes is gone, Steiden has got that control that he'll be able to, along with a head coach, etc., identify targets and so on and so forth. And Steiden will be doing the negotiations, and all Sullivan will have to do is just sign that check. That's going to go well, isn't it? John McKenna, good evening to you. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate it. Oh, yes, a couple of shout-outs, by the way. I did call out, Devon and Dave when I met him some time back, but I also met a couple of people at the weekend. Got to say hello to Tony, who I met outside the tap near the Premier Inn. Thank you, mate, for stopping and chatting to me briefly and saying that I look much taller on the screen than I do in real life. I'm a short ass, I'm afraid. And also to Jeff, and please, I hope I've got this right, Jeff and his daughter Natalie, I think it was Natalie, who I spoke to after the game in just before I was leaving the stadium, and we had a good old natter about West Ham United, etc. And really nice to bump into you and for you to say hello to me as well. So that's nice. Right. Beers, now you're talking my language. Who talked about beers? Jason, still lost a good mate, Ben Smith, 2 weeks back. Leicester fan, but like the Hammers, heart attack just over. Fucking hell, mate. Just over 40. Real top human. Just want to give shout out. Rest in peace, Smithy, from all West Ham fans. Mate, Jason, really sorry to hear that, mate. Really agonizing. I'm so sorry. And, our hearts go out to him and his family. Mark, all this talk about Kudus going to Liverpool. I hate all this paper talk. It's rubbish. Great show. Thank you very much indeed, mate. It is rubbish. I've no doubt Liverpool are going to be interested because their Mohamed is off, isn't he? He's leaving out, go elsewhere. So they're going to need a player to come in to replace him. But West Ham do not have to sell people. Billy Bob, good evening to you. You've gently caressed that like button. Thank you very much. Vinay, Merson is no good. Moyes shrill. Lopetegui has won more than Moyes, probably the better manager. Don't listen to Merson. Doesn't know what he's talking about. Jason, happy I'm well. Thanks, mate. You're all saying hello to each other. Good evening, Andrew. I hope you're well, mate. Good evening to you, Epic. Moyes leaving has restored my interest in football. I actually look forward to next season. Fucking hell. Lopetegui's got a lot to live up to please you lot, hasn't he? Good grief. But Matt Adam, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Danny Williams. How are you, mate? Thank you for joining. I hope you're well. Vonnie, going to try and avoid the transfer gossip over the next few weeks and only listen to the West. And I do say, I mean, I won't lie, I've slipped up. Tonight, I'm going to talk about a few players, but only just to give you a framework of what I think Lopetegui is going to try and build at West Ham. So there are a couple of players I will mention, but it's what I think. Well, no, it's educated guesses as to who we might be going for. Let's scroll down. Who else have we got here? John. I saw that on Clarendon Hugh that DK is pulling the strings now. He wants Steiden in, so Sully has finally got the memo. All these DK. Kretinsky. Oh, John. Kretinsky doesn't give a flyer, mate. He doesn't. Kretinsky's there to earn money, and that's what he's doing. So do not believe that he's getting any more involved than he was for the last couple of years. He wanted Steiden. He wanted Steiden in. Did he, mate? I doubt it very much. Anyway, no, I'm not going to go at you, but it's just like, you know, Kretinsky, if you asked him, do you know who Tim Steiden is, he'll probably go, who, what, where, why? William, good evening to you. Need 2 new centre-backs. God knows who they're going to be. Well, I've got one idea. A very educated guest one as well. Good evening to you, NWO. How are you? Black Country. Hope you're right, Still. Great Sullivan's gone. I can only drink. Well, you know, Sullivan, in the thing I did a couple of weeks back, I think I called it Sully and the Shake or something like that. And basically, Sullivan wants to take a step back. Basically, he's 75 years of age. He's looking at trying to sort of slow down. Oh, I bet that Mrs. Avis is. Anyway, let's move on. He wants to probably slow down. He wants to go abroad, apparently. So he wants people to sort of take over the reins in terms of, you know, doing transfers, etc. It might kind of make sense now. Why? Because I did question, as happy as I was for Tim Steiden to come into West Ham United, I did quite question it and go, how's this going to work then? Especially with David Moyes ensconced in the team at the club last season. I thought, well, you know, Moyes has got a couple of years left in the contract. How's it all going to work? And now it's all beginning to come to make sense. Sean, hopefully no more dithering. Yeah, you know what? That's the one thing I'm looking forward to. You know, because one of the things that we always hear at when it comes to transfers is we're going to do our business early. We're going to get in there early. So we have a good pre-season. And then what happens? 2 days before the season, the transfer window shuts, we're still trying to get deals through. Let's hope this is a new dawn. Toha, I'm waiting for Billy Bob before I caress the like button. Now you can all caress the like button. And if you're new to the channel, you can all caress the subscribe button as well. Montana, good evening, mate. Why are you so anti-academy players on Twitter? I'm not. See, this is an interesting thing. I had a bit of an argument with a couple of people on Twitter last night. It kind of called me out. I'm not anti-academy whatsoever. I think, and ironically, I'm going to list some of the academy players that we ought to be looking out for. Do I think we're going to get a lot of academy players in the squad next season? No, I don't. How many? 2 at best, I think. That's not being anti-academy. It's being realistic. But I'm not anti-academy at all. But I think people misinterpreted what I was saying on Twitter. See, that's why I don't like Twitter. I end up getting, and I do it to myself, I end up getting involved in stupid arguments with people that just want to sort of call me out. Nikos, Yasu, Diganis, Hola Gala. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. James Mansfield. Evening, Stealth. Enjoyed our chat on the train out of Cologne. James, didn't remember that, but thank you for reminding me. How close Moyes' plan nearly worked. Hopefully that Flynn Downs may have a chance with a new gaffer. Well, I hope so too. And thanks for reminding me about the train trip from Cologne. I do remember now. Yes. James Lee. I was wondering if J-Lo is coaching is a coach who is going to be here to bring in a slightly more progressive squad. No way have we got the squad to make the full switch to pacey and progressive football. Like I said last week, basically, Lopetegui is all about possession-based football. It's about the mid-block. So, as we know with Moyes, the low block, it's defending on the 18-yard line, all 10 players behind the ball, etc., etc. Lopetegui is a bit different. It's the mid-block, so that it compresses the midfield, so you're trying to make it harder for teams to get through us. It'll be three lines of players, a 4-3-3 formation, and he will leave players lingering further up. It's interesting because when David Moyes, when he had Lingard, and then after Lingard left the following season, he always had a player or two sort of hovering, didn't he? He always had a player or two that was waiting for a ball to break free in order for us to play the counter-attack. Why he hasn't done that for the last 2 seasons, I don't know. But Lopetegui apparently is that kind of manager where, head coach, I keep being called out for calling him a manager. Lopetegui is the sort of head coach that would leave players further forward so that if we do break the opposition down, we've got an outlet. It's 3-3. Is that the under-21s? Wow, that must be a great game. Cockney, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Let's hope more youth get a chance next season now that Moyes is gone. And I just wonder, playing devil's advocate, what would happen if youth don't get an opportunity under Lopetegui? What would happen if he turned around and goes, do you know what? They're not good enough. What would happen then? Well, how would we feel as West Ham fans? Would we then turn around and say David Moyes was right all along? Or we just have a go at Lopetegui as well for not giving youth an opportunity? Robert, 2-3 in the under. Is it 2-3, 3-3? Oh, 2 minutes between each goal. Okay. Montana, why is the club not streaming the academy game? Good question. I was excited to see the lads put on the show. The really good question. Good evening, Andy. How are you? I hope all fine. Everyone's fine, aren't we? Because we won at the weekend and there's only one game to go for the season to end, and then we can have a proper summer break. Oh, no, we can't. We've got the Euros. We got Moyes number 2 in Southgate. Just one more game to go before the next chapter starts. John, you ain't having a go at me. You're just calling Clarence and Hugh. I didn't call anyone bullshitters. What was the question you said earlier on? Whatever it was, it's bullshit. But I'm not calling Clarence and Hugh that. Hustle, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Thank goodness for Sutherland was slowing down. Get them along sooner, NWO, no educated guess here. Okay, then I'll be a stupid guess then when I get to it. Robert, it's because Sky wants everyone to watch the Villa and Liverpool game. Oh, yeah, that's on, isn't it? Does anyone care? Does it matter? Will it matter? I think they could all both finish in the top 4, aren't they? Shaky, I believe Stelling's a Sully agent. He doesn't want the new manager to play the youth. He's a dinosaur in disguise. Dexter, good evening, mate. How are you? I'm more optimistic about Lopetegui coming in. I think the positive things are coming for us. Sean, I got patted down by police at Cologne train station some years back. You're lucky you weren't in Frankfurt train station or coming out of there. Fuck me, that was a horrendous. Cologne's nice. But Frankfurt, goodness me, the junkies around there. Anyway, Dexter, looking forward to the piss up on Sunday, knowing that the Gooners won't win the league. We'll clap Moyes off as he definitely deserves it. If he, I don't want Arsenal to win the league. I don't think anyone does, do we? I mean, it's the irony that the 2 teams that the Arsenal fans take the piss out of most, Spurs fans and West Ham fans, it's in our hand. It's on the club's hand, those clubs' hands, as to whether Arsenal win the league or not. I don't want to say I hope we get beat at the weekend, but I hope we get beat at the weekend and Man City are crowned champions. I don't want Arsenal to win it. Anyway, let's scroll on. I don't want to sound bitter, but I am, I guess. Oh, I'm down. Right. So let's start with the game. A bit of a match review. So the team lineup. Moyes did a Moyes, didn't he? Because he dropped Edson Alvarez from the lineup, because Edson Alvarez and David Moyes had a bust up apparently at halftime against Chelsea, and David Moyes kind of pinpointed without naming him that certain players were not playing position, and that's why we were 3-0 down. But we played a lot better in the second half because we only conceded 2 goals rather than 3, and that of course was Edson Alvarez's fault. And he did a Moisey. He dropped him. Really, I mean, oh, Mr. Moyes, I don't know. It's just like, why? Why? Was he trying to prove a point, that Ward-Prowse, because Ward-Prowse is his signing, is better than Edson Alvarez that he was given to by Tim Steiden? I mean, you try and start thinking of conspiracy theories, but you got to start asking yourself, why did he do it? Alvarez was one of our best players, is one of our best players this season. I was saying at the beginning of the season, or like when he settled in, that how different we were with Edson Alvarez in the team. He kind of that bond, he glued the defense and the midfield and the attack all together. He was a pivot. He is a pivot, and he's going to be a major, major player for us next season under Lopetegui. And for the fact that David Moyes, being the stubborn that he was, dropped him, just made me giggle. I wasn't even angry about it. It just made me giggle, really. Look, the game, as I said earlier on, game of two halves. The first half was dire, absolutely terrible, and we 5 minutes in and Luton went 1-0 up, and you went, they're here to spoil the party, and of course by half time there were boos, there were jeers, we were 1-0 down, and fans weren't happy because we just didn't turn up. Second half, completely different game, completely different approach. And we went at them and we did what we knew, what we could do. We did what we know we could do every game, and go at the opposition, and give them a game. And it worked. It worked for us. And we were three, worthy winners at 3-1. And I enjoyed Ward-Prowse's goal. That made me giggle a bit as well, thinking, oh, Alvarez wouldn't have scored. Or certainly that's probably what David Moyes was thinking. And then a brilliant goal by Souček, to be honest with you. Catching it on the volley with his wrong foot, with his left foot. That was a superb strike. And then, of course, man of the game, man of the moment, really, is George Earthy getting his first professional goal. And what movement for him. But, I mean, great play by Kudus, who I think was a standout player on Saturday for us. All this stuff about him going to Liverpool. Of course they want him because he's a superb footballer. And the way that he jinked around the Luton defence to create that goal for Earthy, and then Earthy's movement to score, absolutely superb. Look, it finished well, thank goodness, because I dread to think what would have happened if we'd lost. And it ended up being a good send-off for David Moyes. It was interesting because when I did my review, I kind of implied that there seemed to be a bit of a reluctance by some fans in the crowd to sort of like sing his songs. In the Bobby Moore Lower, we got, I don't know, this bunch of fans directly behind the goal, which kind of try to start all the singing. And I think they did a couple of times the We've Got Super David Moyes song, and not everyone got involved, but he got a round of applause, he got clapped off, etc. And I think, look, regardless of what you think of him and regardless of what you think about the football, etc., I think, he got the send-off that he deserved. And good luck to him. Good luck to him. He's going to look for another job in football. I dare say when a Premier League team is struggling near the bottom of the league next season, he might well be called up. He'll be that type of manager that can go in and do a job. Will he ever get another job to the size of West Ham United? I doubt it. I doubt it very much. Let's see what happens with Everton next season. If how well they're doing and whether they might fancy bringing him back. But look, he got the send-off that I think he deserved. And as everyone said, it's an end of an era now. We've moved to a new chapter, and we see what happens from here on in. Right. Before I go on to talk about Lopetegui's Claret and Blue Army and the squad that he's going to put together, let's do a bit of a roundup. So people are telling me, too soon. People are telling me that it's 3-3 in the playoffs between who are we playing? Sunderland under 21s against West Ham United under 21s. So do keep me informed what the score is there. Tough one, but I hope West Ham get through on that. Under 18s, that since I was last on the West Ham Weekly, they played 2 games. A game last Tuesday where they smashed Crystal Palace 4-1, and that secured their second place in the under 18s Premier League. Josh Ajala scored a superb hat-trick. in that game. And then on Saturday, in the final game of the season, which didn't really mean much, we'd already secured second place. The under-18s played Spurs at home, and we got beat despite two stunning goals from Dan Rigg and Riley Hagen. We got beat 3-2 by Spurs. Season's awards, we know they were all, most of them were handed out at the weekend. Jared Bowen, Hammer of the Year, much to the disdain of Areola's wife, who thought that he should have had. Look, Areola's been superb for us this season. I wouldn't have denied him if fans voted him for him to be Hammer of the Year. I already mentioned Alvarez. I thought he's had a superb season, but he missed quite a few games because of suspensions, etc. So Bowen, Areola's been great, but Bowen, for getting the goals that he got, 16 Premier League goals, which matched Paolo Di Canio's number of goals, and 20 goals throughout all competitions, which superseded Marlon Harewood's 19-year record of goal scoring in a season. Well done to Bowen, because I think he kind of deserved it. Of course, young Hammer of the Year was George Earthy, well worthy. He got the Mark Noble Young Hammer of the Year, and of course he capped that off by scoring the goal that I mentioned. The women's team, Hammer of the Year is goalie Mackenzie Arnold for her season. Not been a great season for the women's team, but well done to her. And young women's Hammer of the Year was Japanese international Riko Ueki. Well done to her as well. Now, some sad news. Martin Searns died last week at the age of 79. He was the last of the dynasty of the Searns family to be involved at the board at West Ham United. And he succeeded his father, Len, as chairman in 1990. He stepped down a couple of years later when Terry Brown took over. Rest in peace, and respects to all your family. Now, who's going to Florida in the summer? The tickets went on sale today for the Sunshine State Tour. We'll go over to the United States to take on Wolverhampton Wanderers and Crystal Palace in the inaugural Stateside Cup. We start with Wolves at the Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville on the 27th of July. And then before that, we face Crystal Palace at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa on the 3rd of August. Why before that if it's after that? Anyway, I'm just reading what the bloody website said. It says before. It ain't before that. It's after. So the 27th of July is going to be against Wolves, and the 3rd of August is going to be against Crystal Palace. Tickets start from $35 each, and a couple of £100 to get over to Florida, if not more. Then even more money for hotel stays, and even more money for all the junk food that they sell. But hey, whoever's going, have a great time over there. Right, some loan news. Thilo Kehrer finished off the French season, playing the whole game for AS Monaco as they booked their UEFA Champions League return with a 2-0 win over Montpellier. Now, that's going to be really interesting now that they've made Champions League. Would Kehrer actually want to come back to West Ham United? I can't remember if they've got an obligation to buy or not. I don't think it is. I think they've got an option to buy, but it's going to be interesting. Elsewhere in League One, the French League, Saïd Benrahma was an unused sub for Olympique Lyonnais, and that means he'll be back for pre-season. Let's see what happens with him as well. And of course, Flynn Downs is the last remaining loanee at the moment, and he's coming back to West Ham United after a very decent spell with Southampton. He played in the 0-0 playoff against West Bromwich Albion at the weekend. It'd be interesting again to see whether Lopetegui wants to keep him or not. Other players that are out on loan, Nathan Trott from Vajol Beke. They got a great victory over Viborg, who we played, of course, in the Europa Conference League, 2-1, which means that they might be a little bit clear of relegation now. And Christian Heggie, another goalkeeper for Den Bosch, although they suffered a 2-0 defeat, He's had an amazing season for them out on loan. He's a pretty decent keeper, Christian Hegi. He was called into the Hungarian national squad. He hasn't played for the senior team yet, but he has been called into the Hungarian national squad. Very, very highly thought of. So all our players on loan now are done with. They're all going to come back for pre-season, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with them from here on in. Right, am I done for that? Yeah. So let's go into your chat, and then I'm going to go on about what Lopetegui may or may not do this summer. Jason, do you think Steven Bergwijn is still a genuine target? I really rate him, and Uncle Tim was keen in January. What's your opinion? My opinion is, in all honesty, Jason, I didn't think that it was a genuine target in the first place. I'm not so sure it will be again this time round. We are looking for a left-sided attacking midfielder, so he will certainly fit that role. But I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you, Jason. I think that was one where let's see. But I think there are other players that I'm going to mention that play that role as well. So I'm not too sure. Andrew, we ain't beating City even if we play well on Sunday. You never know. Stranger things have happened. Obsidian, later than Stel, that takes some doing. Good evening, mate. Thank you for joining. Daniel, the 4-3-3 setup, will Lopetegui adapt this to our youth system? Well, they play a 3-5-2 system. You know, so that's more adaptable than a 4-2-3-1 that David Moyes was using. Probably not. I don't know, actually. That's a really good question, though. Will he change the setup for the academy? I don't know. I think he'll probably have a conversation with the academy coaches and see what they plan to do moving forward. But good question. Didn't think of that before. Peter, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Maybe he was saving Alvarez for the Liverpool game. Liverpool game? We're not playing Liverpool. You mean Man City? I doubt it very much. He's just being petulant, wasn't he, Moyes? Sean, I think he might be destined for one of the Champions League teams. Would be great if we could get him. Who were you talking about? I didn't notice the comments. Mandy, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Good to see a team with three talented offensive on the front foot. Well, we did well, didn't we? Martin, with our front players. I think we played really well in the second half, and our front players were superb. Martin, Stel, you were talking about Saturday's game earlier. Thanks for the updates from the stadium this season. They've been my pleasure. They're annoying not annoying to do. They're annoying to load up because whilst I'm waiting for the bloody things to load up, I'm missing the action and something will happen. And what went on there? Because the bloody things. Loading things up at the stadium are just poor because the stadium connection, the Wi-Fi there is absolutely crap. Good evening, Mark. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you. I didn't see you at the Premier Inn on Saturday. I hope you're well. Hammer it. The players took longer to get ready to parade around the pitch than your average woman does getting ready. Oh, it's a bit sexist, isn't it, Hammer it? Tony, Moyes is going to Ireland. Good luck to him if he does. That could be an interesting shout, actually. I wonder how he'll do there. You'll make you hard to beat. Well, don't know about that. Jason, my opinion, Moyes should go to Celtic. Ex-player and fan. Scottish, he can win some stuff and have a go in the Champions League. Good luck, Moyes. Scotland, job maybe. Good shout. Good shout, possibly. Bill, I was watching Ward-Prowse and Souček closely against Luton. Couldn't understand Alvarez exclusion, but those two did a job, especially after the threat of Barkley went off. Barkley going off was a shame for them. It really was a shame for them. Oh, sorry. Hang on a minute. You're all talking about 3-3 and 5-3. What? So it's Liverpool Villa 3-3. But what about the under 21s? Is that 5-3 on penalties on the under 21s? Getting confused. You're giving me scores for two games here. Bonnie, Moyes handled himself really well on Saturday. Don't know why, but part of me felt sad. Probably because of end of an era. Still onwards and upwards. I won't lie. I felt sorry for him. You know, and I said in the post-match review, all he had to do was just tweak a few things, David Moyes. You know, I mentioned earlier in the show about how he played when in the first couple of seasons that he came back, you know, for his second spell, and always had a player lingering further forward. Lingard, Yarmolenko, Antonio, etc. That we always had a bit of an outlet. So, yes, we defended deep, but if we managed to get the ball off the opposition and get it up, we had an outlet. Look at the goal that Yarmolenko scored when he kept us in the Premier League when we beat Chelsea 3-2 at home. during lockdown. And I just wonder, why did he stop doing that? If he'd have kept that, we would have had a bit of a threat moving forward. And I think maybe, just maybe, fans might have accepted the low block, given the fact that we had all of a sudden he started, for the last season and a half, 2 seasons, all of a sudden he just started having all players behind the ball. So when we got the ball off the opposition, which was quite rare, there was no one there to pass it to, which I found really odd. There were just things that he could have tinkered, things that he could have changed. Of course, using more subs, using a bigger squad. Of course, maybe giving the youth. Look, he gave a lot of youth players opportunities, but they played in games that weren't worth anything. The Europa League, the final group stage game of the Europa League 2 years ago, he played virtually a whole youth team there, the lineup, and throughout the last few seasons, he has given players a glimpse, but they're glimpses. They were just glimpses. They, in nothing games, the last 2-3 minutes of a game, etc. And I think that's what's really upset people, certainly part of it. Anyway, Hammerit, I'm glad we won in a way, as Moisey wouldn't have had as many fans still hanging around. That is true. Peacats, I'm in the States. No way am I going to Florida. It's way too hot. Yeah, it is way too hot. It's way too. You're absolutely right. Hustle. I'm going closet way for me to get to see it from New York. LDC, I'm going closest way to see it from New York to Florida. Montana, Earthy, Casey, and Cordova need a major chance in the team next year. Hold that thought there, Montana. Sean, isn't care an obligation after a certain number of appearances, which have now been triggered? You're probably right. I wasn't sure if it was if it was a obligation or an option. James, Benny under the new manager may be interesting. Hold that thought as well, mate. Mark, can't wait for Moyes' punditry. David, what can you tell us about Germany? I don't know much about them, to be honest. Andrew, Kehrer was unlucky never to get played in his best position, used all over the place by Moyes. Montana, Stel, did you say that Lingard not coming back after his loan was not due to him? Stel, you did say that Lingard was not coming back after his loan was not due to him. Yeah, I heard quite some time before that Lingard wasn't going to come back. And I think Moyes kind of held on, didn't he? Hoping that he could change his mind, but that didn't happen. Cockney, the academy should be training alongside the main squad and not at a totally different location. Well, that's interesting because Again, it's news that happened that came out a couple of months ago, I think now, that West Ham United are looking for a new location around Essex, somewhere around Essex. And the plan is that they're going to probably close down Chadwell Heath and Rush Green and amalgamate everything together. Now, that won't be for a couple of years, but that's my understanding. They are planning to do it. Daniel, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Really wish to go back in for Fofana this summer. Interesting one. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Ray, good night to you, mate, and thank you for joining. Really appreciate you coming in. Epic, I pity whoever gets Moyes next season. I don't know. They might think he's some kind of saviour. Moyes will have Celtic in fifth. James, has anyone looked at the Hammers Network interview with Balagi about Lopetegui? Really? Yeah, I watched that. It was very good. Congratulations to Anton for doing a half-decent interview. Didn't think he had it in him. No, it was good. Andrew, would it be worth going back in for Onana? Everton need to sell to buy. Is he worth going back in for? I'm not sure that he is, to be honest with you. Decent. He's proved that he's decent without a shadow of a doubt. But if we're looking to give youth a chance, or maybe giving Flynn Downs a chance, wouldn't either Freddie Potts or Flynn Downs be the backup for Alvarez? Or would you want to have two holding midfielders? I'm not too sure that Lopetegui would want two holding midfielders, but it's a good shout. Fofana, I think, from Monaco, is maybe a more decent shout because he's a bit more of a box-to-box player. That would be interesting. Montana, I'm the opposite of Moyes. I believe we're the best team that the world has ever seen until we get thumped. I come to my senses. Andrew, I would test Forest for Gibbs White, good age and an excellent player. Absolutely. But now that they're safe, I doubt very, very much they will want to let him go. Steve, I'm sorry I didn't catch up with you at the weekend, but I hope you were well, mate. Shame. It was absolutely. And I hope you enjoyed the day. Cockney. What was the worst about Moyes not playing? What was worse about Moyes not playing the youth is that the youth teams are so successful. They earned the chance. Some did. I don't think they're all ready, but some did. And we do also have to remember, and it's not defending David Moyes, we do also have to remember the under 21s now were the under 18s the previous season. You know, we did let quite a lot of under 21s go because the club thought that they weren't going to make it. Look at Harrison Ashby, prime example. Harrison Ashby went off to Newcastle thinking that he was going to get his moment. And then he went out on loan, and then he came back from loan. I think it was Swansea, and now they're going to let him go. Now, do you know what? I wouldn't mind getting Harrison Ashby back. Maybe he's learned his lesson. But anyway, having said that, the under 21s this season now were most of them were the under 18s the previous season who won, you know, the under 18s FA Youth Cup and all that sort of stuff. So they're all quite young. They're all 18, 19. I think maybe like Freddie Potts, you know, give one or two of them a loan spell somewhere and see how they get on. Freddie Potts, it didn't hurt him. And now he's in with a shout, isn't he, with the new season coming up. Montana, still, we should have gone for Glasner after the Conference League in the summer. He's making Palace unbeatable. They're doing well. I've got to admit, they're doing extremely well. Infamy. Lingard's stock has just plummeted even more ever since he went to Korea. He's barely getting any minutes. I mean, his career's over. It's finished, isn't it, really? Raymond. Though think Areola needs to work on catching high crosses when under pressure. I think he needs to sort of get on with that. His getting the ball out, his distribution. When he first arrived, the distribution was really good, and that seems to have gone downhill. Daniela. Still, Forest have FFP issues, so they might need to sell. Yeah, good point. Good point. Infamy. Justin Bilo from Feyenoord could be a good potential backup to Areola. Good evening to you, Steve. A good shout there, Infamy. Good evening, Stephen. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Bill, plans under discussion with Redbridge Council for Little Heath Barkingside site. Home of Belonians FC was the last I heard for the new training ground. Thank you very much. I knew it was in Essex somewhere, but I couldn't remember where. Excuse me 1 second. Got to check my audio. Yeah, that's okay. Soho. Stel would never pronounce Calmin. Montana. Kelleher is not a good shot stopper. Liverpool lost a lot when he stepped in for Alisson. Right, I'm down. Right, let's take a little break so I can take a bit of a drink. And then we're going to talk all about Lopetegui's Claret and Blue Army. Right, that was a bit longer than I thought, but it gave me an opportunity to have a drink because last week I was absolutely parched and I don't think I took a moment to breathe. So, Lopetegui, as we know, even though people are still questioning it, signed his contract last week. He will not be announced to West Ham United until the after the Man City game. So expect an announcement sometime next week, Monday, Tuesday, something like that. Even though David Moyes' contract is until the end of June, I'm sure he'll begin gardening leave and gone early. He's got another job, isn't he? Pundit. That'll be interesting, but let's see how that goes. So, as said earlier, before I say as said earlier, if you're new to the channel, please do hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel because that will help me a lot. It doesn't cost you anything to do so. So, as I was saying earlier, the priorities are 2 centre-backs and a striker. I've no doubt we're going to buy more players, but the immediate priority is to get 2 centre-backs and a striker. Now, we know very well that Angelo Ogbonna, he said goodbye to everybody. You know, if there was a little bit of a tear in my eye is when he got subbed and he touched the turf and waved to the crowd and everything. He has been absolutely superb for West Ham United in the years that he's played for us. Another one that did 10 years with us. Excuse me. It wasn't just Aaron Creswell that's had 10 years, but Ogbonna as well. has done 10 years, and he has been absolutely superb. But we know his time's up. 35 years of age, his time's up. And I know people are saying we should keep him on as a coach, defensive coach, etc., which is not a bad shout. Let's see what Lopetegui does. I doubt very much he will keep him around. And it's a shame because he's such a character, always a smile on his face. Even when he didn't play, it's interesting when you hear about players when they don't play, they throw a strop, etc. Not Ogbonna. He's been a model professional at West Ham, and I've enjoyed every minute. He's given us some fantastic moments. The goal against Liverpool in the cup and stuff like that. Absolutely fantastic moments, and he'll be missed because he's if there was anyone that should have been captain, all right, he wouldn't have played as much, but I would have made him captain and then someone else as vice captain rather than Zuma. I think he had much more about him, Ogbonna, as a leader than Kurt Zuma does. But we know he's going. We know that Zuma, plays like Bambi on ice. So we know we can't rely on him. Finally, the club are saying, that we cannot rely on a player like Kurt Zuma to stay fit for the whole season. And every season he's been with us, he's missed so many games. And we've got, of course, his name's gone, Mavropanos, who's, I think he's getting better. But he's still got a mistake in him. And then, of course, Naifa Gerd, who, despite who the manager was going to be or who is, still is looking to move on from West Ham. And I know a lot of people are saying, no, that's because of David Moyes, etc. And I've been told, no, he's just not settled in the Premier League. He doesn't actually enjoy the Premier League. Interesting, isn't it, really? Because I thought he would have been that kind of defender that would have enjoyed his time there. Now, apparently, there's clubs like PSG that are involved, one or two other clubs, etc. Monaco, who are now in the Champions League next season. So it's going to be interesting. And apparently, some clubs are looking to come in to maybe get him on loan to buy. We don't need that. We need to sell. We need the money, the 30-odd million pounds that we paid for him, so that can go into the coffers for. I think it totally and utterly makes sense that we're going to look at buying 2 centre-backs this coming summer. And of course, we all know we need a striker. That's the other priority, apparently, that we need a striker. We cannot keep relying on that, Mikel Antonio. Look, Antonio's proved me wrong this season. When he came back from injury, he's been absolutely superb for us. The 4 or 5 months that he's played, he's been superb, scoring goals, running his heart out. Absolutely incredible. Now, many are saying, of course, that he's playing because he wants to impress the new manager, so he wants to keep his place at West Ham United. Look, a backup maybe, but we need a new striker. So those are the priorities: 2 centre-backs and a striker. But how many other places do we need to cover? Look, there's going to be no European football, so we're not going to be stretching the squad next season the way we have been for the last 3 seasons, but we still need cover for injuries, for suspensions, etc. And of course, as been already said in the chat, we may blood some youngsters. Maybe some youngsters might get more regular game time. Maybe that will happen in the domestic cup competitions. And of course, if the more youngsters you bring in, the less you have to spend in the transfer window. But there are other players that look like they're going to go. Ben Johnson, he's been offered another contract again, and again he's not looking to sign. And it looks almost definite that he's going to be going. And then you've got a question mark over Vladimir Sufal. Look, a great servant again, but we know that we need an upgrade on Sufal. So we need a right back. We need a cover for Emerson at left back because we know Cresswell was going to go. Interestingly, we could. So in a way, we need that could be 2, 3. That's 4 defenders, 2 centre backs. A new right back if we cannot persuade Ben Johnson to stay, which looks like we won't, and a backup for Emerson. So that's 4 players already that we've got to sign. Now, I said earlier that Lopetegui plays a 4-3-3 formation. Now, one of the 3 could be Paqueta if he stays. Now, there's now beginning to be suspicion that he might actually stay at West Ham. Look, And I did a show again last week about him. If we keep him, that's great. That's one less player that we have to buy in the in the summer transfer window. If we sell him, the money that we'll get for him will certainly go towards getting, two decent, half decent midfielders. Now, if he stays, he could be part of the three in the midfield. I'm going to show you a lineup in a minute of how that could work. So if he does stay, he could be in the middle three alongside Alvarez. And then, of course, the other of the three that could be playing in a middle three rather than the front three could be Kudus. Now, I said it earlier on, everyone's worrying about Kudus and the fact that Liverpool are apparently going to make a bid for him. Look, people, his release clause doesn't come into effect until summer 2025. Of course, Liverpool and anybody else that might be interested in the player might want to make a bid for him. They can do, but the good thing about it is we do not have to accept any bid. We can just turn it down flatly, even if it's 100 million, etc., and just say, no, we're keeping him for one more season. Kudus is happy with that. Kudus, the one way of getting him to sign was to agree to a release clause being put in his contract. He also agreed to it being 2025. So don't worry. Yes, of course, clubs can come in and put bids in. Of course they can. But West Ham United needs such a rebuild that I doubt very much that they're going to let him go. In fact, I'm pretty certain. I'm going to bet my hat out on it that we're not going to let him go. Now, what do we need? Well, I've already mentioned the two centre-backs as a priority, and I think we probably need a right-back with Ben Johnson leaving. And then that's the middle three that could happen next season. We could have Kudus could play further forward, of course, but also, and I think maybe if he doesn't play in that middle three, he could play as the false number 9 alongside Bowen with a new left-sided attacking midfielder, player. So he could be in a middle three alongside Alvarez and Paqueta, or he could be in a more advanced role. Look on the right-hand side, the players that are leaving or potentially leaving. Ben Johnson, because he's at the end of his contract. Aaron Creswell at the end of his contract. Tilo Kehrer, I think it was Sean that said there's an obligation to buy now because he's triggered that obligation and he's going to be playing Champions League football. Ogbonna, end of his contract. Naifa Gerd, because he doesn't want to stay. Danny Ings, I think we're going to look to offload. And Mbama, who's also at the end of his contract and has yet to agree. There's talk about Mbama going to Everton. Interesting. He'll be a free. Now, if we're going to bring in at least 5 players to make the first 11, alongside Areola, Emerson, Kudus, Alvarez, Paqueta, if he stays, and Bowen, then you look on the left-hand side of the screen, the squad players. How many of these players are going to want to stay on the bench at West Ham? Mavropanos, I think, I doubt it. He might accept it. One of the ones that may do. Would Soufal accept being on the bench? I don't think he will. I think he'll look to move. Would Zuma stay on the bench? I don't think he's got any choice because I don't think anyone will want to buy him. Flynn Downs, we've already talked about. There's a chance that he'd rather stay at Southampton rather than be sitting on the bench. Will James Ward-Prowse want to sit on the bench? That'd be another interesting one. Thomas Souček, another one. Would he want to sit on the bench? Now, we know Cornet has done. And interestingly, there may be a chance for Cornet to actually make his mark with the new manager. He may be given a chance that he wouldn't have had under David Moyes. And then, of course, there's Antonio. Would he be happy to sit on the bench as well? I'm not so sure. And then we've got Saeed Benrahma. He could be given a lifeline as well. Interestingly, both Cornet and Benrahma could be given a lifeline under Lopetegui. They might both get a chance under him and they might be happy, sort of being players who will be coming off the bench, starting sometimes, not starting at other times, etc. So it's a massive rebuild. Not only do we have to buy 5, maybe 6 players if Paqueta leaves, just to make that starting lineup even stronger, then you've got to look at the squad players and ask yourself the question, how many of them will want to sit on a West Ham United bench? I'm not so sure many of them would. Now, when you've got your academy players, these are the ones I've picked out who have a potential for making it into the senior team. Do I think all of them will? No, in all honesty, I don't think all of them will. But you'd like to think that maybe 2 or 3 of these players might get a really good chance at making the being in the senior squad and maybe getting a bit of game time here and there. Christian Hegge, I've just mentioned, he's already made the Hungarian national team. He's yet to play for the Hungarian senior team. He has played, he's a regular starter for the Hungarian under-21s. He's been out on loan at Den Bosch this season, and he's done exceptionally well. Caelan Casey, we saw a snippet of him. He's one of the players that came from the under-18s and is now regularly playing for the under-21s this season. And we saw him come on for Ogbonna near the end of the game on Saturday. So Caelan Casey is one. Luzau, who we bought from Brazil 2 seasons ago now, who's been doing half decent in the under-21s. A regular starter is another one that could be a good shout for as a backup. Ollie Scarles, well, we know about him already. Decent left-sided player. He can play left back or left wing back. He could be the backup for Emerson, where we don't have to maybe go and buy another player. Do I think, by the way, that Casey and Luzau can be backups for the likes of, I don't know, Zuma and Mavropanos? I don't think so. I still think we're going to go and buy 2 players, 2 centre-backs there. And then, of course, we've all been introduced to George Earthy, great potential. And I think he might get a bit more of a shout than most of the others next season playing regularly. Freddie Potts, I'm elated for him. I think he did superbly at Wycombe Wanderers and the season's just finished. And he's in with a shout. My gut tells me that he might be sent out on loan again to probably a championship team, a bit like what we've done with Flynn Downs. And then Lewis Orford, another very, very decent midfielder who could be in with a shout. And then someone else mentioned Gideon Kodua. I think he's an unsung hero. He's the one that led the under-18s to the double 2 seasons ago when he was the captain of the under-18s. Yet another one. All these players, let me just double check, apart from Luzau, all these players have come straight from the under-18s playing for the under-21s this season. Do you see we shipped out quite a lot of under-21s? And these are the players that sort of took over. So Kodua, I think is an unsung hero. I think he's a very, very good player. He might be in with a shout. Now, he did half okay for Wycombe. I don't think he got near enough as much game time as I hoped he would. But when he went out on loan at Wycombe. But maybe another one that might be sent out on loan again to a championship team next season. And then, of course, Marshall. When he went to West Bromwich Albion on loan in January, I was really pleased for the player. It didn't work out, unfortunately. As soon as he went there, all their strikers came back from injuries, etc. And unfortunately, he didn't get much game time. But will he get a chance at West Ham? I think maybe another one that could actually be sent out on loan again next season to see how he does. So you've got some players there. You've got some very, very decent players there. Do I honestly think that they will all make the senior team squad on a regular basis? Hand on heart, I'd love them to be. But looking at them, potentially for me, 2, maybe 3, potentially. Earthy's one of them. Maybe Potts if he doesn't get sent out on loan. Maybe Marshall if he doesn't get sent out on loan. The others, I can see the others probably going out on loan again. Hopefully not to League One sides, but hopefully to championship sides and really cut their teeth, really sort of get to grips with, playing regular football, etc., and then see what happens thereafter. So it's not that I'm against, someone mentioned that, on Twitter, I look like I'm against the academy. I'm absolutely not. I'm realistic in what I think could happen. And I think we've got some players there that have got true potential. Caelan Casey, Luzau, 2 centre-backs. Ollie Scarles, left-back. George Earthy, Potts and Orford, central midfield. Marshall and Kodua. Kodua plays like a number 10-ish, midfield, number 10, can play up front, etc. And then Marshall, who's number 9. So we've got a great array of young players, but do I honestly think they're all going to make the senior team? No, I don't. Because I think some of them are still going to be learning their trade, maybe sent out on loan. But yes, 1 or 2, maybe 3 might be hanging around the senior squad next season. Right. The last bit is who are going to be are potential transfers, because we're hearing the stories now, aren't we? There's loads of stories going out there. We're going to buy this player, we're going to buy that player. Don't believe it until it actually happens, I guess, or there's something a little bit more tangible. But the first one, when it comes to centre backs, I couldn't find a second centre. Yes, of course, there's Tosin Adebayo. I don't know how you pronounce him. A free agent from Fulham who used to be a Man City youth player. So then there's one or two others. There's been players that's been mentioned in the Championship. Now, interesting, the reason why I'm not taking a lot of notice about players from the Championship is because if you're going to use Championship players, then you might as well use the youngsters. I think, why not give the youngsters a chance rather than buying a Championship player? Having said that, there is one player in here in my list that is from the Championship, but I'll get to him in a minute. Anyway, first link is, of course, a Wolves link because of Lopetegui, 26 years of age, Max Kilman. It will be amazing to get their captain. I'm not sure they're going to want to let him go. But for around £40 million, it might tempt them because they've got no money, and quite possibly offering 45 million pounds might tempt them, because that might allow them to go out and buy a couple of players to strengthen their squad. And now he also helps with the homegrown. That's another thing that we need. So when you start hearing about all these foreign players that we're going to get, just remember, we need homegrown players, people, and they're going to be almost prime targets initially to build up our homegrown lists. Because here we've got, how many have we got? We've got one homegrown in the starting 11, and then on the bench you've got the keeper homegrown. That's 2. Then you've got Downs if he stays. That's 3. Ward-Prowse, that's 4, and Antonio, that's 5. You need, for a 25-man squad, you need 8 homegrown players. Now, that's 5 if we keep all the players under the squad list and the players starting 11. So we got an issue with regards to the players we go for, and Max Kilman will actually help the homegrown quota, English player, and I don't see that it makes a lot of sense for us to go for a player like that. 26 years of age. He's contracted at Wolves till 2028, and it'll be worth about 45 million pounds. Next one. I mean, you knew this was going to happen, didn't you? How many seasons were we linked to Yusuf and Nesri when David Moyes was here? And now again, because of the Lopetegui Sevilla link, we're linked to him again. 26 years of age. He's got 1 year left on his contract at Seville. He's known to Lopetegui. My understanding is he was brought in during Lopetegui's tenure there. He's priced, with 1 year left, he's priced at something like 20-odd million pounds, which is pretty reasonable. He was out of form for a couple of seasons, but this season he's back in form. 19 goals, 3 assists in all competitions. Another player that has been mentioned in the last few weeks is Wilfried Zaha. He left Crystal Palace last season on a free, at the end of last season, on a free to Galatasaray. He'll be 32 later on this year. So far, or in the Turkish league, 10 goals, 5 assists in 40 appearances. Now, the Turkish club may want a fee. Well, not may. They will want a fee for him. They'll want something like 15 to 20 million pounds. Is he worth the punt at the age of 32, or has his best years passed him by? It's an interesting question. Will he do a job for West Ham United? Yeah, I dare say he would. But the one thing that we need to do is bring the average age of the squad down. And all right, he's got pace, which is a good thing. But are we going to get him at the time when the best years are already past him? Another player, an English homegrown player again, is Ivan Toney. We've been linked to him. Now, I know people are going to say there's no chance we'll get him. I'm not so sure, to be quite honest with you. Apparently, the only team that might be remotely interested in him above us in the sort of like the top 6, etc., is Spurs. There's a rumour that Spurs might put in a bid for him. He's 28 years of age. Again, he'll help with the homegrown quota. Hasn't done that well since he came back from his ban, his betting ban. 4 goals in 16 appearances. Maybe at the age of 28. That's why I'm wondering whether many of the sort of top 6 clubs would be interested in him, because they'll be looking at the age of 28 and thinking, I don't know. Is he worth it? Given that Brentford are going to want to around 50 odd million pounds for him, I think some of the top teams might be put off by that. But he's another shout. And then the only player that is in the Championship that's been mentioned today is Sammy Smodic of Blackburn. Look, all right, he's a West Ham fan. So that helps, doesn't it? Well, no, it doesn't really help, really. But great that he's a West Ham fan. Apparently, he's a season ticket holder. All his family are West Ham, etc., etc. Look, he's had a great season in the Championship. 33 goals and 4 assists this season so far. But he turns 29 later this year. He can play as a striker. He can play as an attacking midfielder. His contract expires in 2026. It was only renewed at the tail end of last year. But he might be the cheap option. He could be like a 10, 15 million pound option. If he was to be brought in as a backup, I'd say, yeah, that'd be worth it. If he was to be brought in as our main striker, I'm not so sure, to be quite honest with you. Look, there are other names. They're the ones I've focused on for now. Plenty of other names that will be appearing with Lopetegui links, with Seville links, with Spanish club links, because he managed the under-19s and the under-21s Spanish team. So I dare say there'll be players like someone like Pablo Fornals, for example, that are going to be linked to us. The main thing is, my understanding is he has been given the funds. He will be given the funds to build. It'll be interesting to see which of our players stay, which of our players go. You look at on the right-hand side, players leaving, like I've mentioned already. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players there. And quite possibly Paqueta, that'll make 8. And then quite possibly if players realise they're going to be on the bench, you might have a few more players leaving. That's a sizable rebuild, that. And I'm making an estimated guess that we will need about 5, possibly 6 players to come in to actually strengthen the squad. But as I said, there may be 1 or 2 players from the under-21s that might make their mark, on a regular basis to bolster that squad up. That's it. Right, let me go into the chat and see what you've all got to say. Cockney, I judge Moyes by how much I picked my feet. I judged Moyes by how much I picked my feet rather than watching the game this year. I found myself doing it far too often, looking forward to watching barefoot next year. Raymond, what are the things you lot get up to whilst watching football? Raymond, think we need a new right wing back, as Soufal showing his age, getting done during games on the wing. Yeah, just mentioned him. Epic Ekwa is the player we shouldn't have released. I totally agree. He's now at Sunderland. I thought he was good. I thought he was going to be the next Declan Rice. He came through the same channel. Chelsea sort of let him go. He came into our academy squad, etc. And I think he looked quite mustard, to be honest with you. I'd agree with you there. Jason, don't we have a buyback on Ekwa and a sell-on fee? No. Apparently, if they sell him, we get a percentage of what they sell him for, but I don't believe we've got a buyback on him. Turbo, good evening to you. Excuse me. I really need excuse me. Turbo, all this kerfuffle at the same time as season ticket renewals. Not a great move. I haven't yet and still not sure. Get it done, mate. Come on. It makes sense. Jason, still a fan of Rowe at Norwich. Down the left. Could be a snip if they don't go up. Interesting call. I don't know what you agree with, Stan, but thank you very much, mate. That comment was made 20 minutes ago, so do forgive me. Stephen, Moyes a pundit on Talkshite. If any callers have a go at him, I bet he goes defensive. Andrew, I would prefer to keep Paqueta if Lopetegui can convince him to stay. But if not, 85 million in our bin will be very nice too. A win-win for us, whatever. Absolutely agree. Let's scroll down. Smaller players are good midfielders. I liked his cameo. If you're talking about earthy, absolutely. Smaller players, well, one of the best players in the world was small, wasn't he? That little RG. William, young Forrest Gump wearing campus runs better. So I'm laughing because I got it pictured in my head now. Bill, I read Dino had an argument with Moyes during training. That I didn't hear about. I certainly heard about the argument that he had with Alvarez at half time, where Moyes more or less blamed him for the 3 goals that we shipped. But it was all right because we played better in the second half against Chelsea because we only conceded 2. Fofana has just qualified for the Champions League. Robert, that's him gone then. Andrew, Lopetegui wants Nesri. Already mentioned him. I don't know if he wants him, but he's certainly a player that, and it comes as no surprise, does it? You know, he's managed Nesri at Seville, you know, and so we're going to get a few of those, I think. Martin, any players going down this season worth buying? Do you know what? I haven't properly looked at the squad. Barkley's worth a shout, to be honest with you. But then he's what's he, 31, 32 as well? You know, I'll be really honest. I might do a little bit of a recce on that, Martin, and see what players are half decent from the 3 teams that have gone down. That's a good shout. Raymond, Zuma knows think Zuma knows deep down his playing days are limited. Think the games we could have not conceded had we had a pacier entire centre back. I really agree. You know, he looked fucked, really, absolutely knackered. Hammer, Hilaire and Scammer still winds me up thinking, what if? Not Scamacca. I don't care about Scamacca. I know he's come good at the tail end of the season with Atalanta. Hilaire, though, bothers me. You know, I still maintain to this day, if we'd have kept Sebastian Hilaire, would have been playing Champions League football that following season. I genuinely do think he's that good. Andrew, wouldn't mind us going in for Jonathan David, top player. Yeah, he's been mentioned with West Ham for quite a few years. And he's been doing well at what French club? Is it Lille? Decent. Sean, he looks very raw to me, Trudge, and way overpriced. Who did Trudge mention? The Brazilian left winger looks exciting. Don't put your bets on it just yet, mate, because I'm not so sure how true that story is either. Now, yes, Steiden did go out to Brazil. And yes, I think, you know, obviously he's scouted a few players, but it won't surprise me if we don't come away with any Brazilian players. But I could be wrong. Hamret, how ironic that Moyes has been after Nesri for all these years and comes the first window and he comes in first window after Moyes leaves. Graham, 2 centre-backs would be a great way to start as we're absolutely pedestrian at the back. Anyone else would be a bonus. We really need a rebuild in the back, at the back, don't we? The Real Simpsons, good evening to you. We need at least 7 new faces, maybe 5 this window and 2 in January. Good shout. Southside. Evening. We need what, mate? Loads of players. Who else have we got? Trudge. If you don't gamble, you never win. And I think a lot of luck is involved. Are you talking about football in general or just gambling in general? Aaron, Liverpool will be paying well over the odds because they'll have a lot of money with the sale of Salah. Tim will exploit that. Look, I don't want Kudus to go. I think we should be building the team around him. But if we get offered obscene money and Steinen has gone, let him go. I've got 3 players that I can bring in for that money. Then I'll be going, all right, it's a shame, but I trust Tim Steinen to do the right thing. King Robert, good evening to you. Paqueta is just too good to not be playing in the Champions League. Careers come quick and fast. So if he stays top 4, must be the goal for next season. I actually do think that without the distraction of Europe, and I know that sounds ironic, I actually do think that without the distraction of European football next season, that we could be challenging. I'm not going to say top 4, but we could be challenging top 6. I don't think it's beyond us if we get the squad that I believe that we're going to get in. Jerry, Tierney could be a useful player as Arsenal want to move him on. I think, again, we were linked to him last summer as well. Usual, so many negative vibes radiating from Moyes. I'm so pleased he's gone. Daniela Kudus is not ready for that big move yet, if he's honest with himself. That's a really good call. I would say that for both Alvarez and Kudus. One more season at West Ham United, playing well without the distraction of European. But I know it's going to hurt not having European football, but without the distraction of European football, and I reckon both those players are going to be dynamite, and they're going to be worth every penny we ask for them. I think you've got a good point there. Another season in Premier League football at West Ham, and you're going to have every club queuing up to sign both of those players. Infamy. West Ham scouts should take a look at Thiago Alamada from someone United in the MLS. Can play either wing, but mainly used as an attacking midfielder. Can't say I've heard of him, but good shout. Raymond, really wish Moyes had at least some of the academy kids have minutes in the season where he went. That's where he went wrong, amongst other things. Look, I'll tell you what's the proof is going to be in what happens next season. If, as I said earlier in the show, if Lopetegui doesn't give certain youngsters a chance, are we going to blame Lopetegui, or are we going to have to admit that maybe the youngsters are maybe just not as good as we like to think that they are? It's going to be interesting to see. Now, I've listed them. I've listed some young players who might make the grade next season. I'm hoping that maybe, just maybe, a couple of them might break through. Sean, we're going to be well short of homegrowns once Johnson, Creswell, Downs leaves. Absolutely. Good evening to you, Nivadius. Good evening, mate. Cornet redemption incoming. It's very, very possible. It's very possible. Andrew, no European football this season could be a blessing. If things click with Lopetegui, we could do a Newcastle, Aston Villa, and fight for top 6 or maybe better. Absolutely agree. Real Simpsons, Cornet needs to be moved on. Benny, I'd have back. Breaking news, Cornet is dog shy. Nivadius, why would a Gerd leave? Lopetegui likes him. He wanted him at Seville because apparently he hasn't settled in England in the Premier League. The understanding is he doesn't like it, but there might be another understanding that maybe money calls because Saudi Arabian clubs are very interested in him, and he could get paid a king's ransom to go and play his football there. Bill, whoever comes or stays, rotation for me is key. Yeah, good shout. Paul Evans. I think all players will improve without Moyes ball. Nivadius, Luzau is not that guy. Luzau is not which guy? Not the guy I showed, or someone else? That's his name. or you just you don't rate him. King Robert, Kodua and Earthy. Kodua is a decent player. Kodua is good. Cornet 100%. Who else we got? Montana, Kodua, Earthy, and Swire will be good. I didn't put Swire in. I'm not so sure he'd make it. Under 21s lost 5-3 on penalties. Oh, that's a shame. That's a real shame. I thought they were going all the way. Bad luck to them. That's a real shame. Nivadius, Potts gives that 41 vibes. I'm glad you think he's that good. Who else have we got? Toha. How about Fofana? It's already been mentioned. Chelsea must need to sell a few. He did well at Burnley. Andrew, Cornet, Ings, Creswell, Ogbonna, Johnson, and maybe a Gerd are all going. Cornet, possibly. Ings, I reckon, definitely. Creswell out of contract, Ogbonna out of contract, Johnson out of contract, and a Gerd doesn't want to stay. Nivadius, only Potts has physicality to play in the Premier League. Others will be loaned out. Interesting call. Trodge, Kodua, captain of team, got to have something about him. He wasn't captain of the under-21s. He was captain of the under-19s, under-18s, but he wasn't captain of the... But I like him. I like him. What I saw of him throughout the last couple of seasons, I think he's a pretty decent player. Bungs, good evening to you. Seriously effed up, and what a challenge the new manager has. Zuma, Creswell, Ogbonna, Agurd, Paqueta, Ings, all will go. Bit of an F up. Hammer it. Do you think moves will get a chance in pre-season? See if he can improve. Apparently, no. Mubama is on his way, and apparently, I don't know how true this is, Everton are looking at getting him in. He hasn't signed. He hasn't agreed. Look, when it comes to Mubama and the likes of Johnson, you believe what you want to believe. But now the proof is in. It's not just about David Moyes, because they're still not signing new contracts now that they know that David Moyes is leaving. Him leaving would have made you think that some of these players might go, well, let's see how it goes now. Yes, I will give West Ham, a signing new contract and stay for a couple of seasons and see what happens. Johnson and Mubama are both on their way. And I keep being told, apparently, the reason being is because it's all about that. And agents are telling them you can get better deals elsewhere. On your way. Harrison Ashby, anyone? Shame, really. Andrew. Let's get your comment up. Would keep Antonio will be a useful squad player. Last 20 minutes against a tight defense will be useful. I totally agree, but I would wonder if he'd want to stay and be that sort of squad player. I'm not so sure. Sean, we need 8 homegrowns aged 21 plus in a squad of 25. We do indeed. All these youngsters are under 21. So they're not going to make up the homegrown requirements. So you can have them, but they're not going to make up. You're absolutely right. So we need, if we want a squad of 25, we need 8 homegrowns who are 21 and over. That's why, Anang, for example, Joseph Anang, people sort of go, well, why do we, what's Anang doing? Why is Joseph Anang always in the team as a goalie? Because he makes up that quota of homegrown players. Andrew, Nesri, only 26. He's rapid, scored 15 for Seville, played under Lopetegui. They are very close, apparently. It could happen. It could absolutely happen. Infamy. But Lopetegui, he had a couple of bad seasons, and Nesri. He's come back good again this season. Infamy. We go for Kilman and end up with Godfrey. Sean, we can use as many under 21 homegrowns as we like, but you're absolutely correct. We can use them, but they won't make up the quota. If you've got a 25-man squad, Sean is absolutely right. You need 8 homegrown players, and they've got to be 21 or over. How much of a budget do we have? That I don't know. I did a calculation. Apparently, we had about 30-40 million pounds that we didn't spend in the January transfer window. We will get something like about 10 million for Kehrer, so that's 40 million. If Benny doesn't stay, that's about another 15 million, so that's 35 million. We might sell Ings for 5 million, that's 40 million. A Gerd going 30 odd million, so that's about 70 million. And then we've got, if Paqueta goes, we will insist on the money, 80, 85 million. So you're going to be looking at about 140, 150 million pounds, give or take. Apparently, the board are willing to spend even more. Don't worry about FFP. We're nowhere near the threshold. So we get rid of a number of players and get a bit of money here, there, and everywhere. Cornet might go. That's maybe another 10 million and so on. So my understanding is about 150, 160 million pounds, give or take. How many players will that buy? Maybe 4 very decent players, and then maybe having to look in the market for freebies. But there are a couple of freebies around. Trodge, we probably won't get any of these, and will be different targets next week. You know what? You're absolutely right. Which is why the first and last time until the transfer window opens, then I'm going to open my mouth about transfers. Join me for the transfer window show next week, by the way. I'm kidding. Who else have we got? Jason. Without Oggy, Creswell, Antonio Fabianski going, will bring the age down anyway. That is true. Bill, believe homegrown means registered 3 years with the FA before the 21st birthday. Yes. Or you could be right. I'm not sure. So, for example, Luizao, no, mind you, he's only been with us 2 years. Neil, if we sign Zaha, at least the fecker won't be able to con us a penalty against us. Yeah, that'd be about another 4 or 5 penalties this season. Charles, if you had the choice of Solanke or Tony, who would you choose? That's interesting. That's a really good call. I'm going to go for Solanke. I think Tony, he's lost his edge a little bit. He might come back good next season. But he's lost his edge a little bit. So I'd go for Solanke. Daniela, I heard that Tony doesn't want to come to West Ham. He might almost not have a choice if he wants to go to a bigger team. Sean, someone said the other night, didn't realize Smodic was 28. He is 28. He'll be 29 later this season. Touch of the Hugills. You could be right there, Trodge. Infamy. Did Hugill even ever get over 10 goals when he was in the Championship? I think he did, but I'm not sure, and I don't care. Andrew, would only block Marshall's pathway, and no from me. I don't. I was really excited that Marshall went to West Brom. I was really disappointed that he hardly got any game time. Do I think he's ready for the senior team? I don't know. I think maybe a loan spell is on its way. James, been listening whilst doing the domestics. This show, thank you very much. Hit the like. I'll do it again. if you're new to the channel, please do hit the like button, and there's a subscribe button down there somewhere. Do subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, but it absolutely helps the channel, and that will be great. Infamy. I'm assuming Hugils are worth more than Zazas, or even if it's only a little bit, in by a little bit. King Robert. Kudus and Paqueta are both number 10s. Yeah, which is why I suggested that they could. Well, they're not really number 10s because Paqueta can play. I know I've got him on the left. Don't throw a fit, but that's where he's played for most of the teams that he's played for. But more in the middle. It's not a winger. It's more a compact three. Kudus, possibly. Kudus, as I said earlier on in the show, if not in that middle three, Kudus could be the false number 9 that Lopetegui likes to use. But then if we bring in a Nesri, what then? Because you don't want him down on the left, do you? He loses himself there. Andrew. Potts looks like he can make the transition. He looks like a top player. Moho, good evening to you, mate. Thank you for joining. Much appreciate. Oh, good evening, mate, and good night. Which one? Good evening, good night, and thank you for joining. Infamy. We have too many left-footed players. King Roberts. Alvarez, usual Toad Moyes' tactics are a joke. Probably wouldn't surprise me. Infamy. I wish Hilaire stayed too, but issue with him is some fans just didn't like his attitude. He seemed too stoic for those fans. Because he didn't smile, I can give a fuck if he didn't smile, if he was scoring the goals, to be quite honest with you. I think we missed the trick there. We really did. Andrew, Lopetegui needs to have faith in our youth. This looks like the best crop since Rio, Lampard, Cole and Carrick. Lopetegui must integrate them into the squad. Look, I don't deny that he must, look, so I read somewhere on that. I think this is where I got into the argument last night, that someone said that Lopetegui's been told that he must integrate the youth. Bollocks. No manager, no head coach is going to be told what to do. A head coach he's going to have the summer to look at all the players, the current senior players, the academy players, etc. He's going to have a look at them. He'll determine who he thinks might make the grade. If he turns around and says, with the greatest of respect, I think all these young players should go out on loan and perhaps the season after next they might make it, then you've got to take his word for it. So apparently he's been told he has to integrate the youngsters. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to do anything of the sort. If he thinks they're good enough, he'll integrate them. If he doesn't, then they won't get anywhere near the first team. Sean, indeed, to Clive, some people are dreaming of getting in players from 2016 top trumps. Robert, I'm reading that we were interested in Braga's Simon Banza. Don't even know who he is. I haven't read that one. Lee, thank you, Stel. Great show. Keep up the good word. Great. You too, mate. And thank you for joining, Lee, as always. Leslie, good championship players. Patterson goalie at Sunderland. Greaves, Cab, and Philomeni at mid-wing field winger from Hull. An unknown DM from Saints. Flynn something. Andrew, would steer clear of players like Saha, Barkley, and similar would feel like going backwards. It's fair play. James, is Kudus' release clause contract can't be activated? Yes, it can't be. Look, like I said earlier in the show, James, a club can come in and they can make a bid for him, but because we've got that agreed release clause in the contract, we can turn around and go, no thanks. We did this, we did this with Paqueta. We've done this with other players where, thankfully, we're starting to do our business properly in transfers and putting in release clauses rather than letting players go for next to nothing. Clubs can make a bid this summer for Kudus, but we can tell them to take a hike. Come next summer, if a club meets the release clause value, then we are obliged to let the player and his agents speak to that club. So this summer, if a club comes in and goes, we'll give you 85 million, we can tell them to sod off. We've got no obligation. But next summer, when the release clause kicks in, if a club comes in and says, we offer you 85 million, we're obliged to allow them to speak to Kudus and his agents. Foxes. I'm worried that all this new manager attention has made our Lopetegui forget about the infamous video. How could I forget? I did find it. I said I was going to play it one day, but not just yet. When there's not a lot to talk about after the season ends, I might dig it out. Gonna be wild seeing our manager actually use all five, and he does use subs. He actually does look at making in-game changes. Good. That would be nice. Imagine if in the first game he doesn't bring a sub on for 75 minutes. Because David told me to do that, he would have said. Andrew, I like a Gerd, but he looks lightweight and struggles with the physicality in the Premier League. And this is probably why he doesn't want to stay. Neil, Matip, way too old. So no, was always suspect in Germany. Trodge, Creswell will crumble eventually and sign the new deal. No. Vonnie, Harrison Ashby seems injury prone, so wouldn't want him back. Good call. He did get injured quite a bit when he was with us. That is a good shout. Jason, good night, mate. Thank you for watching. Really much appreciated, mate. Much and for you joining in the chat, etc. James, go and get Gallagher for our homegrown. Well, we did want him last summer. He didn't want to come. I doubt very much that he's going to want to come this summer either. Trodge, Ashby loans got loaned to Swansea. Didn't go well, did it? No, it didn't at all. Michael, we had 71 million left from last season, so a budget of 200 mil. So Sully will offer Tim 150. Marcus Radford, not on 350 grand, 400 grand a week. No way. Infamy. Dwight McNeil? No. Well, we were linked to him before, I think. Fulfills the homegrown quota, plays on the left. He's also still young. Don't rate. He's just an okay player. He's not anything special. Maybe I'm wrong. David, love Souness saying Moyes won't get a bigger club than West Ham. They're entitled to have watchable football. Did he say that? I didn't know he said that. Daniel, if Paqueta goes to City, we should ask them to throw Rico Lewis and Harwood Bellis in. I'm actually not sure it'll be Man City. Everyone's talking that he might, he'll go to Man City. I'm not so sure. I think PSG are sniffing around. I think PSG might be sniffing around for both a Gerd and Paqueta. Bill, no to Rashford. Anyone who buys a new Rolls Royce and writes it off in an accident. Oh, my God. Is that what he did? Andrew, I was thinking Rashford having a fresh start could reignite his career like a certain Mr. Lingard. Not on 350 grand a week, mate. No. Martin, does the homegrown player rule only apply in the Premier League? Not as far as I'm aware. I think that's a rule, isn't it, across Europe or across world football? That I don't know, but certainly across Europe. Michael, J-Lo is a very hands-on coach with players, speaks 5 languages, so communication shouldn't be a problem. Hope him and Tim will work, unlike the grumpy jock. Who else have we got here? Moho. Potential centre-back signing of Cock and Balls from Portal UFC. You're either winding me up or, well, no, you are winding me up. Hammer it. Just excited at the prospect of someone else in the dugouts. The chance for youth is greater. Something new has been on the cards for ages. Neil, can imagine that there will be something about youth players being used, even if they don't make it to the top flight. They're pure profit on the books, business sense. Yeah, that's the way we're going. We're finally dealing with, we're finally managing the footballing side of our business as a business. I've said it many times before, when it comes to other parts of the business, moving stadium, this, that, and the other, we're very good at it. The one thing that we've been pretty shit at is managing our football in a business-like way, losing money on players, when we buy and sell them and stuff like that, developing youth players and then selling them at a profit if it's the right thing to do. That's the bit that we've been missing out on. Sean, word on the street, there's not much from the neck up either, Budgie. Who are you talking about now? Debenham Dave, agree still, we all want our homegrown youth players to succeed. Some definitely will, but it's a big leap to the Premier League. It absolutely is. David, be great to have a coach who will try to win every game. Jason, night all. I thought you said night half an hour ago. Happy as always, stay frosty. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated for you being on. Michael, our youth have the technical skills but need to bulk up, so don't expect to see many move into the first team squad for 2 years. Trodge, Ekwa and Alacy were huge, would have been all right. I liked Alacy as well, to be honest. I like both of those players. Yeah, I know, he got me. It's been a while since we had one of those. I know. Well done. That's it, everyone. I'm done. I've run out of comments to put on. Interesting show. Interesting to see what's coming up, because we are certainly, one way or another, we're going to have a new squad, a new first team, or virtually a new first team. So it's going to be interesting to see what Tim Steidten and Lopetegui are up to. As you know, that the worst kept secret is that Lopetegui was sounded out sometime last year. I thought he was only at the stadium once in November watching a game. Apparently he's been at the stadium for something like 3 games since we started talking to him. So we've been talking to him for quite some time. He would have looked at the squad already. I think he probably knows. I think him and Steidten already know who they need to get in, what positions they need to get in, and to do it pretty quickly. So I am confident for the first time in a while. I am confident that we're going to start getting players in sooner rather than later. I hope it's going to help us to hit the ground running. And if a manager like Lopetegui is happy to come to West Ham without any European football, then why not 2 of the half-decent footballers that are out there with the promise of, look, this is the plan. This is what we want to do. Get West Ham United straight back into Europe after next season. Stick with us. And if we don't do it, then we'll let you leave, or stuff like that. There's always ways of getting good players to sign up, and look at buying into the project that Steidten and now Lopetegui's had. Someone asked me earlier on, what's the project? Clearly, this is the project. Tim Steidten coming in, overtaking the technical side of things, bringing in a head coach. This is the next part of the jigsaw. The next part of the jigsaw is building a squad. The next part of that jigsaw is getting us back into Europe, etc., and being there on a regular basis. Thank you all for joining. Really much appreciated. Thank you for all the comments and the interesting ones as well. You did catch me out there. But have a good week. One more game to go, people. And then we've got the Euros. The mighty England, under Gareth Southgate, are going to give us what Moyes hasn't given us in the Premier League this season. Have a good week, and I'll see you all very, very soon.